Hi everyone, welcome to the Texas Startup Weekend Women Dublin, taking place from 24th to 26th of March at Accenture Song in Smithfield. We have Sarah Blake, and who will be facilitating the workshop on UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal. Please, Sarah, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. We look forward for this workshop. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much for having me. So sorry guys that I can't be there in person. I'm overcommitted today, so I'm in two places at once. So that's the joy of recording this. So Lady's going to ask me some questions after, but I guess if you have any questions, maybe send them on, and then what we'll do is I can kind of get them answered for you maybe in another session if they can't get answered now. So I am going to tell you all about the SDGs. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to hit present in just a second. So bear with me for a second. So hopefully now you see the main screen. You shouldn't see my presenter notes, I hope. So what we're going to talk about today is sustainability and getting the sustainability story into your pitch and into where you're going, because investors are really starting to pay a lot of attention to this. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of things on that, and also kind of just about your own footprint and when you're setting up, like how to kind of be mindful of sustainability when you're setting up. Those who know me from previous sessions, this is definitely my mantra. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I feel like that's almost like a startup phrase, let alone a environmental phrase. So we need to be thinking about, obviously, the planet, but you also have to be mindful that you can't do everything. You have to start somewhere, and that's what happens with the entrepreneur journey anyway. Being one myself, I know this, that you certainly cannot do everything, and the best thing to do is to bootstrap, and when you can get people on board, that's when you can offload. So just to give you a little bit of a kind of intro to what we do. So a lot of what we do here is working with businesses and communities and individuals to help them on their sustainability journey. So we do talks, workshops and strategy, and get people really going with the SDGs, with B Corps, with whatever they need in terms of getting their business a little bit more sustainable. So what are we going to talk through today? We have got a couple of things, but we're going to keep it fairly short and snappy. I don't want to be boring you guys too much. So we'll have a look at the overview of the UN SDGs and kind of what they mean and what they're about. We're going to look at kind of the relevance of investors and sustainability, then kind of the sustainability lens on your own business, then perhaps how you can implement that and the relevant SDGs, and then you're going to have a little sort of deep dive into kind of some of the tools that are out there that could certainly help you on this journey. So without further ado, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a definition here about sustainability, because I think sustainability and a sustainable business kind of used to have slightly different connotations. When you used to talk about sustainable business, you were talking about a business that was able to continue over a long period of time. But now we're talking about business being able to continue over a long period of time, but creating little or no damage to the environment, and therefore being able to perpetuate it. So, if you're not drawing resources from the earth all the time, or you'll be able to use recycled resources, all those kind of things, then you're able to carry on business, because it's not like fossil fuels, which will eventually run out, and obviously we want them to stop burning them and stop using petroleum before they run out, because that's what's causing all the environmental damage, amongst other things. So it's to really think about sustainability and putting that at the heart of what you do. Like, what does a sustainable business mean for you? And certainly if you're in the digital space, you may think you have little to no footprint, but digital is about to overtake aviation in the sense of emissions, because of the data centers, all the energy used and things like that. But we're going to touch on that a little bit later in the deck. So first of all, the SDGs. Now, you may not have seen them laid out like this, but I think it's a really good one. I think it's called like the wedding cake, of how to look at the SDGs and have a think about them as really as a base and your North Star for sustainability. They're a really good kind of good grounding. And some of them, when you look at it, like no hunger and no poverty, you might be thinking, or like, what's that got to do with me? Like, you know, not all of the SDGs are going to be relevant to your business. But the UN Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals that have been set by the United Nations General Assembly as a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all people and the world and the planet by 2030. So obviously here we are at 2023, and we have 7 years left to achieve this. So it's looking a little bit tricky, but I feel if we all come together, we can certainly have a lot more impact on some of these things. And I think that's it. As an individual consumer, you certainly feel quite helpless, but actually as an individual citizen, you have a lot more traction. And so if you start to think of yourself as a citizen instead of a consumer when you're buying things, and how, you know, maybe you don't have any sort of purchasing power, if you like, as a citizen, if you think about it, when citizens have come together, sort of Emily Pankhurst and the women's rights movement and all that kind of stuff, when we came together, we managed to move mountains. So that's how I feel about a lot of, you know, tech startups and what your journeys are, that if we all come together, we've much more chance of making this work. So the goals cover a very broad range of topics, from poverty, health, environment, equality, peace, and education. And each one has a further subset of targets which have sort of actionable indicators and set dates for completion. So you can see here, we have the kind of wedding cake of it. So, you know, the base layers, if you like, are climate action there in the dark green. Then you've got number 6, which is about water and sanitation. Then you've got life on land, which is obviously also about biodiversity. You've got life below water, which is about ocean acidification. It's about plastics. It's about all those kind of things. Then the next layer, as you can see it there, is very much focused on society. So how do we have an equitable society? How do we mind people? How do we work together? So you can see there, you've got good health and well-being. So you could be doing something in tech to do with, you know, helping people with their mental health. Or it could be number 7, which is clean and affordable energy. You could be doing something to do with cities and helping cleaner cities. I was actually helping some Accelerate Green participants last week and their climate tech group. And we were talking very much about SDG 11 and sustainable cities and communities and projects that would help and facilitate that. So that's the sort of sphere that we're talking about, and that's the 17 SDGs and perhaps how they fit into it in a different way. We're going to look at it in a minute from an ESG point of view as well, because I feel that that fits in with the investment space. I just want to give you an overview of sort of sustainability and sustainability regulation. Again, it's a sort of a pyramid or a wedding cake, and you've got here at the bottom, you've got the Sustainable Development Goals, you've got the Paris Climate Agreement that was obviously ratified in 2015, came into force in 2016, where 55 countries that represented, actually, not unsurprisingly, 55% of emissions globally, coming together to say that they were going to all reduce their carbon footprints and their emissions. Ireland has been a bit of a laggard on that, and we're hoping to move from laggard to leader with a lot of our new companies and some of the stuff that we're doing, and even some of our old companies like Bord na Móna, who obviously stopped cutting peat. They've moved to renewable energy and recycling and biodiversity and habitat protection. So they've done a complete U-turn on what they did do in terms of their business, and they're a shining star for any business that maybe is already stuck in their old ways. If you know of a business that does that, or maybe you're inventing the wheel with your product or your service or your new technology that's going to be able to change that up. So then you've got the reporting frameworks, and this kind of, you will eventually get to know these. A B Corp is in there as well, which isn't on the slide, but there's lots of different ways of reporting on the regulations that you can see at the top. So at the top there, you've got the new regulations coming into force. So you've got the International Standards, Sustainability Standards Board, which is bringing together a number of different sort of strands thus far, and they're putting it all under one umbrella, thank goodness. Then you've got CSRD. So if your product is somewhat aimed towards sustainability in the first place, there are a lot of companies now who didn't fall under the kind of previous regulations, which now, as of 2024, they will have to report on their emissions for 2023. There's a lot of companies that are scrabbling around to try and do this, and there's a big opportunity in that space for anybody that can help them report on gender equality or on, the environment, etc. And then you've got SFDR, so that's Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. So that's very much in the fund space, but in the investor space. So we're going to take a deep dive into that in a little bit more detail, because that's very relevant to yourselves, and certainly if you eventually go and you're looking for startup money or venture capital or impact investing. So, and with the SDGs, we're always talking about impact investing. So here you can see the basics of it. So Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, it's the goal of redirecting capital to more sustainable investments. And Europe have really started to put manners on this. So it's something to be very much mindful of. And they want to eliminate greenwashing by promoting transparency. So there you can see you've got all these Articles 6, 8, and 9, and these are very much focused on the environmental side. So if you're a fund and you have products in this, you're going to need to report under Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. So what we're finding is that investors who are looking to invest money in something that is a little bit more sustainable, be that tech or whatever it is, this is becoming a key part of what your deck needs to contain if you're going to secure investment. So here you've got Article 6, where you need to declare any sustainability risks. So you might be, let's say it's your hydrogen dam or something, or you're doing something with hydrogen. Obviously hydrogen is in itself potentially a green product, but obviously you need energy to make it. So what happens if that energy is not green? Where does it come from? Then it's not green hydrogen. So there are lots of I suppose exposures and risks. There's also kind of maybe just when it comes to biodiversity, certainly B Corp put a bit more of an emphasis on other renewable methods rather than hydrogen, just because they think that hydrogen can't be at the moment fully 100% green, but it depends on who you're talking to and what the product is. Then Article 8. So these have I'm going to say it's do less harm, but it must have social characteristics. So it must have maybe social entrepreneurship. It must have some sort of impact side, giving back to people. And then Article 9 is focused on the sort of main objectives of the sort of 6 taxonomy objectives. So we'll touch on that in a second. But it's products that are purely with a sustainable investment objective. So these are really sought out by investors at the moment. So it's a really good area to focus on if that's something that you're thinking of. So this is the EU taxonomy, just to touch on it. I mean, it's not something to particularly know about, but it really helps when when investors are looking at it, because they're using this as their framework. So here you've got how they classify sustainable economic activities, and you've got kind of, I suppose, 6 kind of main goals in areas. So you've got forestry, you've got environmental protection, you've got manufacturing, energy, water supply, waste management, transport, construction, information and communication, so certainly on the tech side, and then professional, scientific and technical activities. So you can see there the 6 environmental goals are climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, because who knows, at this rate we could well be growing wine in Ireland. Like we could be growing growing grapes for wine and producing our own wine, because it's going to get that warm, and because we have the right kind of slopes, if you like, for it. That could be one way that people could be looking at mitigation and adaptation. Like what are we going to be able to do here that perhaps we couldn't do before? Have to look at the positives as opposed to what's going to come with the negatives. Then the sustainable use and protection of water marine resources. So again, what are we doing to protect fish stocks and things like that? Circular economy, really hot topic, obviously. Then pollution prevention and control, and then restoring of biodiversity and ecosystems. So all of those are kind of really relevant areas. So I'm just going to show you how the SDGs fit under ESG. Okay, so and this isn't like, this is not a hard and fast picture, but it's definitely how most kind of investors are looking at the SDGs and where you are putting your emphasis. So under the environmental side, not unsurprisingly, you've got life on land, life below water, climate action, but you've also got responsible consumption and production. So if you're doing something towards the circular economy, if you are making clothing in a better way, if you are, you know, making less impact on nature's resources in terms of your product, then that's really important, and that's where people are going. So it might be clothing that's going to last for a long time. Obviously, Patagonia being a good example of that. You know, Patagonia just signing over their sort of entire company, if you like, to a charitable trust, so that now what's going to happen within their governance is that the shareholders and the people with the money are separate to where the money is. So it's actually a great way of ensuring the future of the company and making sure that the waters aren't muddied when it comes to decisions for investment. So it's quite a clever way of doing it. Then you've got obviously their clean water and sanitation, you've got clean energy, you've got industry, innovation and infrastructure, and then you've got sustainable cities, goal 11. So under the social side, so your tech might be doing something to do with helping to alleviate poverty, zero hunger, could be health and well-being, could be quality education, could be gender equality, could be, again, clean water and sanitation, could be decent work and economic growth. So helping those who maybe are disadvantaged to kind of move into a space like that. And then industry and innovation falls under all three areas. You've got reduced inequalities, and then peace and governance. So that, you know, you could be helping, you know, in terms of people helping, you know, peacekeepers. You could be doing something to do with an area that's been, you know, particularly affected by conflict and things like that. And then finally, there you've got governance in the last area. And you know, these are really areas where, yes, absolutely, gender equality falls. We all know about having, you know, empowering the women in this room to really kind of take it forward and be able to shine and sing and let people know that, you know, basically, yeah, we're here to take over the world, essentially, because that's, you know, we know what happened the last time, and so now we need to take the reins and make this planet a better place. Then you've got, again, decent work and economic growth, infrastructure, sustainable cities. You've got 12, which again is responsible consumption and production, and number 13, 16 and 17. So 17 is partnerships for the goals. So again, under governance, that could be where, you know, you have a non-exec board, they're working with you, you could be in partnership with other companies. Very much the goals want us to work in collaboration with other companies and to see people less as competitors, but more, you know, in terms of being able to work with projects collaboratively. So you see things like WRAP in the UK, which is obviously all about plastics, or maybe you do and don't know, but it's all about plastics. And so you see lots of companies that wouldn't have worked together before, Unilever, Nestle, like all the different large companies, they can't solve this plastics issue by themselves. They need money and investment, and we need to all pull together to make that work. So that's the ESG side. Then we've got how to look at your own business, right? So that was the outward facing or the inward investment, but the kind of outward facing, what you're looking at. Now we've got how to look at your business itself through the sustainability lens of the SDGs. So let's start with SDG 7. So that's all about energy. So that could be right down to like how your business is powered. So is your website going to be powered off renewable energy? Are your servers, so is your information stored in the cloud on renewable servers? Because obviously data is having a huge impact. And indeed, I think it was Vietnam where the government had to intervene. They had to divert water, and one extreme situation, away from farmers towards the data centers so that they could cool effectively. And that just, you know, that just shouldn't happen. And here, you know, we have had an issue where data centers take up a huge amount of energy from the grid. So now we're actually looking at, you know, situations where they can actually either provide heating. So in Tala, we're looking at the district's heating scheme coming online, where Amazon are providing the heat for the majority of that scheme, and it's going to be able to heat several thousand homes. So the technology exists. We just need to look at that. So certainly from an energy point of view, just make sure that anything tech runs on renewable energy where possible. Then SDG 14, life below water. So again, if you're running this, bootstrapping it from your home or whatever, just even be mindful about what you're doing with water. Because your business as such, might not necessarily have a really big impact on water, but maybe your tech might be something that's going to help businesses to have resource efficiency with water, those kind of things. SDG 12, so this is about waste and supply chain. So this is all the things to do with your own waste and recycling, and who is in your supply chain. We just touched on there, like energy and renewable providers, but it's all that kind of thing where you need to make sure that your supply chain is also ethical and they're doing the right thing for the planet. And let's say just you're using Google or Microsoft. Obviously they have policies and procedures available on their websites, so you can certainly go and look them up to see, are they doing the right thing, and does that sit well with you in terms of the way that they're doing their business, if you like. Then you've got SDG 9 and 11, so that's focused on infrastructure and sustainable cities. So it's transport and travel. So how do you get about? How do you get to and from your meetings? Are you flying? Are you Zooming? Are you walking? Are you cycling? How do you get about, and how sustainable is that? Then SDG 15, that's about life on land, and this covers a number of different sub areas, but one of the main ones is biodiversity. So again, are you using a lot of paper? Are you all digital? Are you looking at how here in data centers, they are planting orchards. A lot of them are planting, sort of, I suppose, little biodiversity habitats around the edge of the data centers. They have actually now started to really look at their impact locally, and are they actually providing, food for pollinators, those kind of things. And then finally, you've got SDG 1, 2, and 10. So that's no poverty, zero hunger, and reduced inequalities. And a lot of that refers to people. So how are you treating the people in your supply chain? How are you looking at the people that maybe are going to work with you? Are you going to be paying them a living wage or a minimum wage? How are you going to be treating them? Do you have a policy going forward on gender equality and those kind of things? Something to be mindful, this is both from a sales point of view and both from a business point of view, that when you get to a certain size, you are going to have to start reporting on CSRD. And this is probably more of a thing for you to be mindful. If you have got a business that's going to be focused on climate tech, you might actually be able to help companies to report under this new sustainability reporting directive. And it's going to be coming into effect 2025, but in 2023 and 2024, you're going to need to have your reporting lines together. And it's for companies with more than 250 employees. They've got more than 40 million turnover and 20 million assets. And so if you've got 2 out of those 3 things, you're going to have to be reporting. And the first reports need to be in by 2026. Which seems like a long way away, but 3 years is going to rock around really quickly. And from the 1st of January, it's for listed SMEs. So, and they get a little bit more time. So if you're an SME that's starting to make some money, just be aware that this is something that you're going to have to be cognizant of, if you like. So where do emissions and carbon footprints and everything fit into this whole picture? So here, I just wanted to let you know about Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. This is just more for you to be aware of, and the language, if you like. So Scope 1 is emissions from owned operations or processes. So that's very much, pretty much if you have a factory, I would say, is when you're going to be having Scope 1. Scope 2, indirect emissions. So these are very much from the production of purchased energy. So that's where, are you on a renewable energy tariff, essentially? Scope 3 covers pretty much everything else. So this is supply chain, or what we now call the value chain. So it's both upstream and downstream, stuff that's coming into your business, stuff that's going out. And you can use the government carbon footprint calculator to see where you're at with your emissions. And just going back to digital, because I kind of highlighted that we might talk about that at the beginning. And I love this graphic from Pucker, because they have equated boiling cups of tea to a lot of techie stuff. So Pucker, the tea company, worked out that the majority of their carbon footprint was actually in how people use the product, i.e. how you make your cup of tea. So if you were boiling too much water, then you're going to be using too much energy, and that's going to be putting a strain, obviously, on the planet. But you can see here, boiling 4 cups of water is like sending 20 emails. Boiling 3 cups is the same as 5 hours on a laptop. So it's all just to think about your consumption of digital. Do you have a laptop that's refurbished? Did you buy it new? Obviously, secondhand is so much better. Have you got a fair phone that is made, obviously, with much better environmental impacts in mind, and it's modular so that you can change the camera, you can switch out the battery, you can upgrade the phone as new things come in, whereas your Apple phone, everything is glued together. It's very difficult to recycle it. It's very difficult to to kind of make those parts into new and to mine the stuff that's in the phone, because indeed the Mint in the UK, they actually made a whole bunch of new coins out of 1 ton of e-waste, so like phones and laptops and stuff, and they got a company to take apart all the components and get all the kind of chromium, obviously, but obviously all the precious metals that go into phones. So when we talk about digital, we talk about not just the kind of what's in the cloud, but also like the actual hardware of the tech, so try and buy secondhand. I know I do from a cost point of view anyway, but yeah, you don't necessarily always have to buy new. You can just go and get some more memory or whatever put into something that's slowing down, is often a good way to do it. So that's just a little thing about carbon footprints and how to be mindful of your own. So just conscious of time here, and hopefully you're not all bored, because I can't be there to do a Menti quiz with you, which is what we'd be doing now if I was there. So think about the SDGs as a driver for investment. So think of this as a tool for getting money into your business. If you're not bootstrapping and you need investor investment, this is a really good way of getting it. So you want to focus on those SDGs where you and your business is having the impact. So if it's tech to do with, let's say it's the lady at Rebride, right? She is helping brides to resell their dresses with an online platform. So if you've got a wedding coming up, I suggest looking at Rebride, because it's obviously that would be like me saying, okay, I'm going to go on and sell my wedding dress. I'm going to get a good price for it. Obviously, you pay a charge to Rebride, and then the world is saved by not having to have a new dress made, essentially. And then you've got to think about the fact that as a startup, you are 1 or 2 steps ahead of any other company. You have the opportunity now to put sustainability and the SDGs at the heart of what you do, and be one of those businesses that these impact investors invest in. I think it's a real opportunity right now. Then just in terms of Athology's focus and the SDGs that we focus on, no brainer, obviously climate action, because that's what we do as a business. We have a very impact business model focus because we want everybody obviously to take on board sustainability. So we are really driving down emissions with what we're doing with carbon literacy, getting people carbon literacy certified so that they can take action. And carbon literacy as a certification is something that you can put on your website as a business, before you even think about becoming B Corp certified or any of the other kind of sustainability qualifications and certifications. It's a great one to do because it kind of educates you on the platform and talks to you about how to really talk to other people about sustainability. Then you've got sustainable cities and communities. So we're obviously about helping employees to rethink their modes of transport. We are talking to companies about how to, create cycling initiatives, how to support some of those health and wellbeing days that are coming up, responsible consumption and production. So a lot of what we do is talking to people about reuse and repair and how you can use that in your business. Life below water and life on land goes without saying, but that, we're keenly focused on the environment and, environmental and planet protection, essentially. Then just something that's kind of important to note is transparency. So just be mindful that it's really important to be transparent and be honest about your journey, because if you haven't done something, someone's going to call you out for it. So it's worth bearing in mind that you just need to think about how you're going to message that. And, you know, greenwashing and green marketing is a whole other topic I could be talking about, but just be honest about where you're at and what your journey is. If you haven't looked at her, there is a lovely lady called Claire who does chocolates, ethically minded chocolates. And if you go onto her website, she has a whole list of impacts in terms of, she's got it right down to her printer, how things are printed, where her website's hosted. You know, it's a really good way of actually just pushing down a sustainability policy for a small business. But obviously it has to be unique to you. And we're talking about tech at the moment, and website carbon is a really good place to go and have a look at the impact of your website when you've got it set up. So does it load fast? Does it have complicated you know, pictures? Is it kind of like, you know, if it's slow to load, it's going to be heavy on the planet. So you want to be thinking about a website that's really quick to load, that, you know, the consumer goes straight to where they're purchasing, they can make their decision, they can find all the information. So focus on being unique to your business. And then I'm just going to wrap up now with some useful tools, because I'm sure you are all needing a cup of tea at this stage. So the SDG impact assessment tool, that's a good place to start. Or you could use the SDG action manager, which sits in the B Corp framework. So if you want to have a look at your business, and you can certainly, as a one-man band, as a startup at the moment, you can still be a B Corp. You have to be a limited company, but you know, or you certainly have to have that kind of framework. But you can set up as a B Corp, and it will show you the SDGs that you're working with under the SDG Action Manager. I've also got a brochure which I'm going to send on to Layla and the team, just so that you have it, because it picks out each SDG. It tells you what the business focus is. It tells you kind of like what it means, like where am I supposed to be going with this goal, and then it gives you an example of a company that's doing it. So it's a really good way of just like going, okay, if I don't really know which SDGs to use, then that's a really good way of doing it. And also there's a free course, it's still running, the SDG Academy course, which is a great way to get started with, and it's specific to the SDGs in tech. So I really like that. And that's free. So that'll be on the PDF. So thank you very much. I hope that was very useful. And Layla might have thought some questions along the way that she can ask me. And if not, maybe send them on to me and we'll see how we can make that work.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was amazing. And you have answered all my questions, actually. I was writing question, and then the next stage is explaining it. Oh, you answered. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah, the question about the mindful of energy use and how to communicate the impacts, and the SDG you're using. You even give the example with Claire and the website thing. I think maybe later in the email you can send us the link, like Claire,
yes.
what a website, and that website link to check if your website is,
sustainably hosted, and website carbon. I'll put that. I'll put that. Actually, I'll probably just add it to the bottom of the deck, and then it'll be there. And I'll put it in the email too, so that you've got that. Because that's a brilliant one of just going to check how heavy your website is, and from a tech point of view, you want to make sure it's loading fast, that Google knows where to go. So what's good for you is good for the planet, because you want people to make the right decision to purchase your product or to do whatever it is, and the quicker they do that, the better it is for the planet.
Yeah, that's great. And even to how to know what SDG applies to you. So the link for the course that you provided, is going to be very beneficial to all the participants. So thank you so much. This was amazing. And surprisingly, I don't have any questions.
That's good that I answered them though as you went along. So you were thinking of them and then they got answered. So that's good. But if anything comes out of the session, then email me, and then maybe I can send you some answers back for the final sessions.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody, you got a lot from this session, and you can apply them in your startup and with your pitch deck this weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.